What can I do for you folks?
Can we talk first about the photo enforcement in residential areas? It
Yes.
seemed like the concerns of the privacy concerns, I guess, were not considered by council enough to stop this, or at least
Yeah,
delay it.
I'm not particularly concerned about it because, of course, the Park Plus system has been operating for many years now, nearly 10 years, without any privacy problems. There's very, very solid systems and processes in place. I understand that people are like, well, if someone knows that I've been in this residential neighborhood overnight, as if anyone ever would. Well, today, if you park in front of the Marriott Hotel overnight, people know that. And so, but nobody knows it. Let me try that again. It's exactly the same as parking in front of the Marriott Hotel today, except, again, no one knows, because that's not what the data are used for. And so I'm not particularly concerned about the privacy issues, because, of course, if someone really wanted to spy on you, they could easily drive up and down the street. And in fact, with those tags, it's easier to tell who's a visitor versus who's a resident. It's right there. So the privacy concerns really didn't play much with me. I mean, there are some convenience issues here, but I think it's a wash. Is it better to run out in the pouring rain and put a paper tag in your visitor's car and then run back out in the pouring rain and pick it up at the end of the night? Or is it better to let your visitor come in and just do it on your app or on the phone? Some will like one, some will like the other. Frankly, I don't think it's much of a change. What this does allow us to do, however, is better respond to people's concerns about enforcement, which we have not been able to respond to under the current system, and I think that's what makes a big difference.
What sort of potential is there for CPA to sell this to other municipalities?
Pretty good potential, I think, because the issue of printing paper application forms and sending out paper tags or making people come downtown to pick up those paper tags is an issue that hits lots of different municipalities. So certainly I think municipalities that have adopted the Park Plus system would be very interested in adopting this module, and there may even be some standalone benefit. There may be some municipalities that want to do it just for that.
Were you surprised to find out that with the enforcement going this route, that the ticket revenue will go up, but then Mr. Derbyshire said he expects it'll level off. It'll
Let's see
fall
if
back.
that actually happens. We have some evidence that does happen, So when you put a speed on green camera at a traffic light, when it first goes up, there's a lot of tickets, but the point is it's supposed to influence people's behavior. We're not really about making money off of people, we're about influencing behavior. And so if it does influence behavior and it goes right back down after we've paid the initial costs, that's a win-win for everyone.
On the playground front, were you surprised at the debate and the passionate speech at the end and then the 15-0 vote?
14 to nothing.
14-0.
Nothing surprises me anymore. It was kind of odd, right? Council has already passed a motion saying civic facilities have to be universal design. This was a really, really, really vague notice of motion on purpose. He just said explore options, figure out how this works. Who knows, maybe there's ways to do universal design playgrounds that are as cheap as existing playgrounds, just thinking about things differently. The example I always use is directly in front of us, there is a staircase and a ramp. And we had to pay to build the staircase and pay to build the ramp. Why isn't the whole thing a ramp? Anybody can walk down a ramp. So when we think about universal design instead of accessible design, there's lots of interesting things that happen. So this notice of motion was very general. It just said, go look at options. Go figure out how these standards would work and see if there's some high priority playgrounds that we should do this in as they come up for renewal. I find it hard to argue with that, and it was a bit odd that many members of council were thinking of, they were doing the same thing on the photo radar, thinking of the strangest possible case to think about why this might not work. It was a bit odd, but I'm not surprised by anything.
Yesterday, the days all went together. You said that Chabot's notice of motion was a waste of council's time, and today you thanked him for it. So what happened?
I learned a lesson, and the lesson is I shouldn't rely on the media to understand what's actually happening. Because actually I thought his introduction was very different than how he introduced it publicly last week, and it was actually very much in line with what I said yesterday, which is that I'm happy to have a conversation about respectful behavior in the council chamber, and when he introduced it saying that's what it was about, that's not what was written down, and that's why it was defeated, but it actually led to a surprisingly interesting conversation and a surprisingly respectful one, I thought.
Can we talk about Mr. Fielding's comment about an offer sheet on an arena? What is he referencing there?
I think what he was trying to say, in fact, I know what he was trying to say because I said, what are you trying to say? is he was simply suggesting that if we are not in a position where there is really something to share with the public on any public financing for an arena within the next 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to be hard to do it before the election. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think there's a bit longer than that. But what he was just trying to get through to council was, once an election starts in earnest, it would be very hard for the administration to continue those conversations.
And have you had any update on whether things are proceeding?
I know as much as you know that people are meeting and they continue to talk.
So are you of the belief then, if nothing comes before council before, let's say, the end of July, the last meeting, that basically things will go into the suspended stage until the new council arrives?
It's hard for me to say. If, a really interesting opportunity for both public engagement and council decision were to come before council's last meeting in September, I can't see that would be a problem. But it is true that this council stops in September and then would not be in a position to be in a decision-making meeting until November. So at that point, if you're a brand new council and it's your first meeting, it's hard for me to imagine they would want to deal with that at their first meeting. So you're probably looking at something a little later.
How important are those timelines? Like, not just the arena, but it was also referenced Olympic and Green Line. There will be some big things coming to council in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
It's hard for me to answer that because of the phrasing of the question, how important are they? They're important projects, and council had set those deadlines. It may well be that on 1, 2, or 3 of those projects, the decision that council makes this spring is to kick the can a little further down the road because more analysis is needed or more stakeholder input is needed, and that's fine. But there are huge, important check-ins that will happen for council prior to the end of June on all of those items.
But kicking the can further would mean after the election.
It might. It might mean shorter than that. It might mean longer. In one case that's very clear is if money is required in 2018, then that decision will not be made until the 2018 budget is passed in November. So we'll have to see how things play. My argument is that there's no such thing as a red zone, that administration continues its work through an election period, that council members have to be circumspect, but administration can continue doing work in the background.
Sorry, you're expecting an Olympic report in June? I thought it was July.
I'm sorry, July.
Okay, it hasn't been moved up.
Council will get some for information stuff to mull over prior to the decision, quote unquote decision, approval, unapproval, kick the can further down, whatever that is still set for July.
Is that more information, public information, or behind closed doors?
Public, I would imagine.
He suggested the Green Line would be to be a report on that possibly this week or next.
On Monday.
And what are you expecting to hear at that meeting?
I don't believe that there'll be any decisions made at that meeting. As you know, there have been multiple Green Line reports going to multiple places. So the timeline remains the same, that a final decision on the alignment will be made by council in June. But there is a big update meeting on Monday, which is really around money. So it's around construction, staging, phasing, and a little bit on financing. So those are probably the conversation that we'll have on Monday.
Is Monday also indicative tax rate?
It's big day. Yeah, there's 2 items on the agenda on Monday, and they're both pretty big.
Staging. Is that just for information? Like, here are some options, or will there be decisions, even though the alignment won't be set until June?
I believe there will be no decisions on Monday, but there will be a lot of news.